You are listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud, conversations about trauma and healing from two women who are doing the work.
Hey everyone, this is Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. Sher, we're in our series Designed for Human Connection, and we're talking about attachment wounds that lead to our style of relating. We've looked at avoidant attachment wound. We've looked at anxious attachment wound. We got to interview our dear friend who is also a therapist, Lisa, about these attachment styles and woundings. And today we are looking at the other attachment style called fearful avoidant, disorganized, or chaotic. You and I both tend to see ourselves in these situations, or in this wounding, in this place of wondering if I'm going to pull back or if I'm anxious and I'm going to cling. Before we pressed record, you mentioned these attachment styles that come from the wounding from childhood tend to, sometimes they're taught as being kind of fixed or in quadrants, and really they're more fluid, and it's like a spectrum. Now, you may identify with leaning towards anxious or avoidant more often, but it doesn't mean you can't feel both. Even securely attached people, that have mostly that secure attachment, that they feel more settled and rested if there is closeness or there is a little bit of disconnection. They don't get so dysregulated. If something happens that makes sense in the relationship where they would get dysregulated, that happens for securely attached people too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good to point that out because there's no perfect. And like relationships are, we want them, we love them, we need them. And there are aspects that are hard and that get us unsettled. And that's okay. Like that's reality. I like the way we're addressing this and saying that like this is normal. We all feel some aspects of this, and we can grow and heal and experience security more and more. And there still will be times that we will find ourselves in one or more aspects of what am I doing with the hurt that I feel or the confusion that I feel in this relationship today.
Mm-hmm. I have a few clients who I've done some little bit of evaluations with that maybe are transitioning from not meeting every week or maybe just as needed. And I love that some of the feedback that I've gotten has been understanding my attachment wounds and styles of relating has been the most helpful thing for me, because life is about relationships. And if we're struggling deeply in our relationships, including the relationship with ourselves, life just isn't as peaceful. It's not as restful. It's not as fun. So we think it's a worthy thing to camp out on and to continue to work on our own inner healing as we encourage other people to look at these attachment woundings and styles. What Sher and I are going to be discussing today is the fearful and avoidant attachment wound, and we will keep calling that. It is also called fearful, disorganized, or chaotic, but we're going to call it fearful avoidant. But over the last few episodes, we looked at the anxious attachment, which means that the anxious attacher this is just a brief summary, is someone who gets regulated by moving towards relationship and craves deeply that connection. And if they feel like there's a disruption in that or a rupture, there can be a lot of high anxiety. Sometimes anxious attachers are called clingers. And then the avoidant would be just the opposite. In the relationship, if there's dysregulation, the avoidant wants to pull back to get regulated and are just called avoiders. But both have anxiety and both are trying to regulate their nervous systems to bring some safety. But more details today is looking at the fearful avoidant. And this attachment wounding, Sher, there's such a bind because it is, and I so relate to this. I can actually be emotional thinking about it for myself and other people that have expressed the pain of having this intense desire for closeness and connection, genuinely, and then fearing it, fearing vulnerability, feeling rejected if it doesn't work out, or impending betrayal. So the core wound for the fearful avoidant is betrayal, because that's what happened to them in childhood. Their caregiver, in some way, created a betrayal wound, and that can happen in different ways. Either the caregiver being abusive themselves, or allowing the child to be unprotected and abused in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think also, and it's good to, I really think it's important to point this out, that betrayal will have some aspect of pulling you close, causing you to feel safe, but then boom, something happens and you're left on your own to struggle or figure it out. And so, yeah, and that betrayal can, I mean, there's 1,000 different ways that can look, but when the child feels that, especially when it's repeated, then we end up developing this fearful, avoidant style of relating that is, like you said, is just so difficult.
Yes, fearful avoidance. That the main issue is trust. They want to trust, and they have this desire to want to trust, and so they actually show up at the beginning of relationships pretty open and somewhat vulnerable. They're good question askers. They know how to build a relationship and to invite vulnerability and transparency. But then when it actually happens, that fear part gets triggered, that they're going to lose the connection somehow. They're going to be betrayed somehow. And it's living in this tension. So it could be a relationship that is secure, but the pain for the fearful avoidant is it's always a question. It's just always a question.
Yeah. And the question is what? What would you say the question is?
The question is this hypervigilance of impending betrayal, hurt, impending. It is this existential feeling of you are going to hurt me.
Yeah, I think, and as we're talking, I think the questions that I have asked, I think, are: can I trust you? And am I being stupid?
Tell me more.
Like when I would find myself trusting more, or believing more, or hoping more, experiencing the goodness, right? Oh, there's goodness here, and I want more. And then kind of pausing and pulling back and be like, am I being stupid here? Am I trusting? When is the knife going to come that's going to cut, and I'm going to realize that I should have seen it coming, right? Because we know how to be hyper vigilant.
Right.
What has been so hurtful throughout life, the times when we trusted and then we just ended up hurt again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, if we go back to that child that developed that, I just hope, like, if you identify with this, that you can see that little child and understand that this was something that developed slowly over time. And, if you look at your adult relationships, and you're still seeing that dynamic show up, we want to say there can be healing for that attachment wound. But it does take someone understanding what this attachment wound is and what it does. I mean, my closest people right now know that my wounding is rooted in a fearful, avoidant attachment wound.
Yeah.
And so I get offered a lot of consistency, a lot of safety around. I think this is a good part. I want to read a few lines that if you identify with this, or you're listening and you care about someone who you're like, why don't they trust me? I've never done anything to betray their trust, or maybe you have a little bit and you're having a hard time recovering. But here's a few things. I thought this was good. I read these from, her name is Victoria Moretti. And this was, what are some things that fearful avoidants need reassured of? Because there is this deep need for reassurance. And here's what she said, a few of the things. She said, what you need is important to me. It is safe to be vulnerable and reach out. Now that sounds really simple, but man, I when I read some of these things, I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to be interested to see how you feel. So I'm just going to go ahead and read them, and I want to see what happens for you. Like if you imagine someone saying these things to you, especially if you're in a little bit of an anxious place, Sher.
Yep.
Okay. I am sorry I scared you. You can trust me to keep you safe. Let's calm ourselves and talk about it together. I'm paying attention to you and what your needs are. I will protect you and stand up for you. I will be your safe place. And I will repair with you when rupture happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel it. And here's the thing that is, I have that now too, Kandace. I have it. I've experienced it in coaching relationships. I've experienced it in friendships. And you and I have this. And we work closely together. So we've had some bumps where, one or the other of us have felt, usually me, it seems like, feels a little insecure, like something happened. And where we have actually literally said some of these words to each other, like, there's nothing I want more than to repair. Like, what do you need right now? And can we slow down? Can you, I will never intend to harm you. And
Yes.
if it happens, like, you can know, I want to repair. Like, I will say that ahead of time, right? And this is what does build the secure attachment. Like, and this is what we are doing with each other and in some of our close relationships now. Like, we recognize the struggle to trust, and especially when we are swimming in these deep waters, that we are really vulnerable with our people.
Yes.
And when we are really vulnerable with our people, there are times when I will feel, oh, did I say too much? Or, oh, how did that land? Or, oh, I saw the look on their face, right? And all of a sudden, I'm swimming in the waters of insecurity. And then what happens then? How do I reach out? And also, and you've said this so many times to me, like, Sher, I saw your face and I knew. And I think that's part of the beauty of developing what we have, where we have gotten to know each other in our places of insecurity and know how to walk toward each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so beautiful. I makes me think of something I heard a guy one time, he was talking about in the context of marriage or partnership, but it's true in friendship as well. And he said the best thing that you can do for your marriage is to have a PhD in your spouse's childhood. But I believe that is for friendships as well. Like, things just begin to make sense. It's like you have this roadmap on how to care for someone. Because if we don't have that, Sher, we tend to take things personal, and we tend to um, maybe even judge, right? Like, but when you have this understanding, it literally is this. I'm going to call it. I was thinking of this. We often hear about breadcrumbs, these relationships that just string you along with breadcrumbs. But when you have relationships that go this deep, it is a feast of healing. And it's, I was telling you recently, I'm reading this book. I'm working with more couples, and so I'm kind of just reading some more stuff. And I was reading this book, and he was talking about attachment wounds, and he said of the fearful avoidant, the fearful avoidant is such a small number of the population that I'm not going to go into that. And I'm like, what? I was so offended.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Sher, we're going to talk about fearful avoidant.
Because in our experience, it's not such a small amount of the population. And I think when we're talking about childhood trauma, I just think being fearful avoidant is so common. Like, I almost assume it in the people I work with, because we've been pulled and jerked back and forth by our caregivers, by the key people in our lives, in ways where, out of their woundedness, not even always intended, but out of their woundedness or out of their dysfunction, they did things in relating to us that were just hurtful, and that left us scrambling for understanding of how to establish connection with a person who is in an ongoing way hurting us. And yet, as a kid, we need them for our very survival. So that's why we learn how to do this dance between, ooh, I better back off. Ooh, and we don't think that. We just do it. Ooh, I'm out of here. Oh, please, 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 right? It's where we go back and forth in this kind of dance of, how do I get back to a place where the ground feels solid beneath my feet again, at least for a few minutes.
Yeah, and that you begin to recognize within your body this place of security. Like, it's amazing. I just did it the other day. I was driving, okay? And I was thinking about this certain relationship, and I immediately felt that kind of heart rate and a little bit of a pit in my stomach. And Sher, I felt it for maybe 30 seconds. And I thought, oh, there you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you are. And I see you. And man, it's just, I mean, these conversations make me so emotional, because the healing that I've done and the healing that I've witnessed over what does it mean to have a secure relationship with yourself, a secure relationship with others, and yes, a secure relationship with God. But I think when it comes to, well, what does it mean to heal? It means that you are able to feel the peace of being securely connected, that you're not alone, you're not abandoned, you're not forsaken. If there is something that is happening in the real, you have people and places that you can go to that will hold you.
Yeah, it's true. I was in a situation recently where I found myself in a conversation with someone where I was feeling some disruption. And pretty quickly I noticed myself kind of doing this dance between, oh, I'm pulling back, and then, ooh, I'm wanting to reach out and make sure everything is okay. And I was able to tune in pretty quickly to see what I was doing, and then also not right in the moment, but quickly after the conversation, I also could see how the other person was disrupted.
Okay.
And they were also in their place of insecure. Something was happening in the conversation. And that because now I know secure attachment, I was able to stay with myself. I was able to check in with my parts and bring calmness. And then I was able to just get my feet on, okay, what is true here? Kind of process that a little bit and then be able to go toward the other person and say, hey, can we talk a little bit about what I was feeling? And I'm curious about what you were feeling. And so something that would have been pretty major, I think, for me in the past, where I would have maybe even pretended like I was fine, but inside I would have been really disrupted. Or I would have just really struggled, but it would have been really hard for me to bring it up and say, hey, there's a situation here. Can we talk about it?
Yeah. I'm reflecting on our journey together over the last almost 5, 6 years.
Oh.
And just think about, in those first few years, Cher, I cried a lot. I was in a lot of, attachment, wounding, insecure. And I don't want to say you never cried, but I think your journey was more of wanting to pull back and shut down.
Yeah.
And I'm just noticing how neither one of us are in that place anymore.
Yeah.
And you and I are both quick to say it doesn't mean we can't be, but truly, if you look at our last year or two, it's just a whole different place that we're in.
Yeah. And the people who we're closest to also, like we are all working on our stories. We're all working on our parts. We're all working on our attachment wounds. And so it creates this place for us to be talking about these things more and processing them out loud.
Yes. This is what we do.
It's what we do now. And it's beautiful and something that in the past I would have thought it's impossible. I will never experience something like that, but we're experiencing it. And yeah, I love it.
I want to close out with, I'm going to read one more thing about being in relationship with a fearful avoidant, because healed fearful avoidants, or those that are healing, really have this ability to feel close and create safety, closeness, and intimacy, and then be okay with the separation. Okay. Or I don't know if I want to call it separation, but when there's distance, but before that happens, this is another thing that Victoria said, or maybe I said this, I don't know. I wrote some of my own thoughts down. Fearful avoidants need relationships that are clear and consistent. Confusion for a fearful avoidant, actually I did write this because this is my experience. Confusion for a fearful avoidant will be the fastest way for them to feel unsafe. And it will trigger either a need to cling for reassurance or to avoid in order to protect. When I have confusion about a relationship, that it's almost an immediately that unsafe feeling that I'm going to be betrayed in some way.
Yeah. And I think confusion it can even be like kind of that flag waving of when we're in the midst of a conversation, for example, with someone or a dynamic where our prefrontal cortex goes offline and it's like we can't, for me, this is my experience, I can't form my thoughts. I can't pull it together. I can't speak. I find myself almost stuttering or swirling. And that is a good flag for me saying like, ooh, I need to step back. I need to breathe for a minute. And if I'm in a place where I feel safe enough, I might say, I'm really struggling with I'm swirling right now, and I need help. And yeah, but I love you mentioning confusion, because I think confusion is really a hallmark here.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I get in that place, where maybe I allow that dysregulation to continue, my prefrontal cortex is starting to go offline. I actually am quick to speak and to say things. And that's that for me is like, if I'm getting that feeling like, oh, yeah, this is the time to not speak.
Yeah.
This is the time
Yeah.
to not speak, because what happens in that place is I usually hurt myself more because I've also hurt somebody that I love.
Yeah. But so hard to do in that moment, because it's the place where there is so much pain. And but you're at a place now where you're seeing it more quickly, usually. Same for me, more quickly, usually. But I mean, we also can say it's a spectrum, and this is lifelong, I think. And sometimes the big things can really derail us, but also sometimes the little things can. And it's okay, because it's part of who we are. It's the way our brain is. And the key, I think, is just keep walking it out, keep learning and growing, and finding those people and places where we can expose ourselves through our stories, like you said, in ways that help the people around us get to know our tendencies.
And what a blessing it is to get to do that for other people.
Yeah.
I'm usually aware of that. This is always kind of underneath the surface, right? When I'm connecting with someone, in relationship with someone, is, I desire to feel safe, but am I helping this other person feel safe, knowing what I know? It's a beautiful thing when we consider ourselves and then we consider the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these conversations, we'll probably be back at some point to discuss more, maybe interview some more people. But I'm thinking maybe we'll have one more just to kind of wrap it up. It just feels like there's been a lot here. But yeah, if you have any questions, or if any of our listeners want to say, you know what, I think I want to take a season to see what's going on with this attachment wound or this anxiety or this shutdown, Sher and I would be happy to work with you or find someone that will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good to be with you. Love you, friend.
Love you too.